All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're taking a really fascinating look at the very foundation of the artificial intelligence we interact with every single day. We're drawing directly from an incredibly insightful lecture by Professor Dilip P. Barad, and he explores this idea that AI models, well, they aren't quite the objective, flawless calculators we often imagine them to be. Actually, they act more like mirrors, reflecting our very own human prejudices right back at us.
So it brings up a question we really have to ask right off the bat. Is artificial intelligence truly neutral? I mean, we tend to think of machines as completely objective, right? Just guided purely by cold, hard math. But what if our digital world is actually just a high-tech reflection of our own society, complete with all of its historical baggage and cultural leanings?
Section 1. The AI Mirror. To understand this, we have to talk about unconscious bias. This is instinctively categorizing people and things without even being aware of it, entirely based on mental preconditioning. And look, we all have it. It's a completely human flaw guided by our past experiences or just the stories we've repeatedly been told. And here's the kicker. Because we are the ones creating the data that trains these algorithms, this deeply human flaw directly transfers right into the AI. You see, generative AI is trained on massive datasets, but those datasets largely come from dominant cultures and are heavily weighted towards standard English. What does this mean for us? Well, it means standard algorithms inherently favor mainstream voices. By default, they kind of just leave out marginalized stories, diverse perspectives, and non-mainstream languages. And it's simply because they haven't been fed enough of that specific data to even know it exists.
Section 2. Literature meets algorithms.
Consider this incredibly powerful quote from researcher Sophia Noble. Algorithms are not neutral. This is a core thesis we absolutely have to keep in mind. Her research, alongside several others, proves that search engines and AI actively reproduce systemic biases. They don't just passively store information, they amplify the dominant cultural norms they were trained on. It's honestly like a megaphone for the majority.
So how do we critically analyze these AI outputs? Professor Barad uses this brilliant metaphor. We need to stop looking at problems like a two-sided coin where everything is just binary, right or wrong, yes or no. Instead, we really must treat information like a multifaceted diamond. We need to examine data in 3D, 4D, and from multiple dimensions. We basically have to look at all the different angles of an AI's response to truly see what it's reflecting.
Section 3. Testing for gender bias. And this next test brilliantly illustrates the point. When an AI was given the prompt, write a Victorian story about a scientist, the output immediately generated Dr. Edmund Bellum, a male physician. The AI just defaults to the patriarchal canon. Unless explicitly instructed otherwise, it automatically assumes an intellectual figure, like a scientist in that era, is a man. Then the prompt, describe a female character in a Gothic novel, was used. The classic AI output replicates the whole angel versus monster binary we see so often in classic literature, giving us a trembling, pale, submissive girl. But what's genuinely amazing here is that another output generated a rebellious and brave woman. This shows that AI models are rapidly updating. They possess natural language processing that actually allows them to learn and progressively overcome these historical biases when they're properly guided.
Section 4. Race, Representation in AI.
Now, 34%. Think about that number for a second. Citing research by Timnit Gebru and Joy Buolamwini, we see that commercial gender classification AI systems had an error rate of up to 34% for dark-skinned women. Contrast that with an error rate of less than 1% for white men. It clearly, undeniably illustrates that AI has historically been programmed to see whiteness as the default setting.
Algorithms actually have distinct racial tendencies. First, they lean heavily toward Eurocentric beauty ideals. Second, they act as what researchers call stochastic parrots, basically meaning they just parrot back and amplify the dominant data they were trained on without actually understanding any of it. And finally, they prove that more data absolutely does not mean better data. Massive datasets act like giant anthologies. They often just make the loudest, most dominant voices even louder.
In another prompt test, participants asked the AI to describe a beautiful woman. One output gave skin with the softness of moonlight on marble. This shows the AI still clinging to classical, Eurocentric fair-skin ideals. But another output focused entirely on a captivating inner spirit and intelligence. And just like with the gender test we talked about, this focus on inner qualities, completely regardless of skin color, shows some real algorithmic progression.
Section 5. Political and cultural bias.
During the lecture, a really fascinating live experiment was conducted comparing different models. When prompted to write a satirical poem in the style of W.H. Auden about political figures, the Chinese-developed model DeepSeek easily generated poems for Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. But when asked to do the exact same thing for Chinese leader Xi Jinping, the model responded, "That's beyond my current scope." Now, looking completely objectively at the source material, this live experiment demonstrates that certain models have deliberate algorithmic parameters set to control or censor specific histories. It is just absolutely vital that we know the geographical and corporate origins of the digital tools we're using.
This brings up a really great question regarding cultural fairness. Does AI treat the ancient Indian flying chariot, the Pushpakavimana, differently from Greek myths? Well, if an AI labels all ancient flying objects across civilizations as myths, then it is applying a uniform, consistent standard. But if it favors one culture's myth as historical fact while completely dismissing another's, then we've identified a clear cultural bias. Fairness, at the end of the day, is all about consistency.
Section 6. Rewriting our digital data.
So how do we navigate this? Professor Barad offers 3 clear, actionable rules for dealing with bias in this digital landscape. Step 1, know them well and recognize they exist. You really have to be aware of your own preconditioning. Step 2, think critically. Remember that diamond metaphor, you need to look for more data, more evidence, and multiple dimensions. And step 3, challenge assumptions and traditions. Take a contrary view just to test what is being presented to you as absolute truth.
This connects beautifully to a powerful concept from author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, which was highlighted in the lecture, The Danger of a Single Story. When marginalized groups, or voices from the global south, do not share their narratives online, they are so easily stereotyped by AI. Think about it, if an algorithm only has one story to pull from, that single story literally becomes its entire reality.
And that brings us to this final, absolutely vital takeaway. We must become uploaders, not just downloaders. If we genuinely want AI to reflect a diverse, unbiased world, we can't be lazy about it. We have to actively digitize our local histories, our diverse languages, and our unique perspectives. We basically have to feed the algorithm better data. So, I'll leave you with this. What story are you going to upload today to ensure your voice isn't erased from tomorrow's digital mirror?